All right, everybody. This is Clint Arthur, and welcome to the greatest show of all time, right here on 77 WABC Radio in New York City. And if you are an author, a speaker, a coach, an entrepreneur, an expert, consultant, advisor of any kind, then you should be popping the champagne right now and settling down with a nice sandwich, or maybe a Cinnabon. Yeah, remember the Cinnabons? Or maybe a slice of New York City pizza to enjoy, or maybe a whole pie, because this is the place you're gonna wanna be and sit and soak in the information that is gonna come at you today, my friends and followers, because we got two native New Yorkers here, and we're both experts. I got a guest here. Her name is Linda Fostek. She's the author of And Now What? Is that a best-selling book, Linda?
It's not yet a best-selling book, but it's getting closer and closer.
After this interview, it's going to be a best-selling book. And she is known as the Crisis Planner. Linda, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend some of it with me and my audience and share some of your wisdom. And how did this all begin for you?
Well, 3 years ago, my gorgeous 6'8" fireman hunk husband unexpectedly died and left me to pick up the pieces. And it's really, the story began before that. For the 8 years prior to that, he was becoming more and more disabled. I mean, he had diabetes, he had 5 back surgeries, he'd had 2 heart attacks, and I was his caregiver through all of that. And literally, when he had kidney failure in the last 3 years of his life, we then transitioned to actually doing home hemodialysis, where I was doing dialysis with him at home. And, you know, so obviously it was very clear to me that his health was like a collapsing lawn chair. He literally was, you know, he'd fix one thing and then something else would happen, and it would go on and on and on. And you think you saved it, but then you're still going down. And ultimately, he had an adverse drug reaction to an antibiotic that cost him his life. It truly changed my life. And, you know, for so many people, when something tragic happens in your life that you don't really expect, because he was much too young to pass away. He was only 62. And, you know, it's like, what do you do with your life when your soulmate and your life partner is no longer there by your side? And for me, it just cemented a journey that I had literally started that was a legacy project from my dad. And that was to become the crisis planner, to help people be prepared for these unexpected events of life, that they could actually recover faster, avoid family conflicts, and control the chaos that crisis brings into your life. So I became a planning expert.
Linda, I know that everybody's thinking, well, that's never going to happen to me. What do you have to say to those people?
Well, certainly a lot of people probably would have said that if it hadn't been for COVID-19 that we've all been through, and we've seen how our lives have turned completely upside down. And that happened overnight. We were not prepared for being shut at home for months at a time. This is now 3 months, and finally New York is opening and we can actually go to a restaurant, maybe. You know, it's been a real challenge for us in that, you know, truly, you know, our lives turned completely upside down, and so many people were not prepared. And you think about all the people that became ill and whose families lost their loved ones and they didn't know what to do because they were shut out from the hospital. They couldn't have funerals, they couldn't grieve, they couldn't mourn. They weren't prepared for what was going to happen. And what I advocate doing is actually having all those plans in place before you need them. And if you do that, then you can get through anything with the least amount of stress and chaos in your life. And that's really what my whole mission is to bring this to everybody's attention, show them how easy it is to put things together and to create a plan that will work for you, whether you have a hurricane or a death in the family or a divorce or, you know, something else goes wrong, a flood in the basement. I have tools and resources that literally help people be prepared for all of those things, which for me is very exciting.
Not only is that something that nobody wants to do, but also anybody who even contemplates it, they think that's going to take a lot of time. It sounds like a lot of work and a lot of time.
Well, you know, I've really made every effort to make that simple and easy for people to do. And, you know, the book And Now What sets out a very simple template to follow. And if you just go through the 8 steps of planning and my planning roadmap, it's really easy. And I'm also now offering planning services to actually walk you through the process, hold your hand if necessary, because it can be overwhelming. It can seem overwhelming and you don't know what you got already. And you might really be surprised how much you actually have put together before you actually need it. I know I was myself.
Isn't that like kind of common sense? Like, don't I just need a will and to know where the insurance policies are? What else?
Well, you know, you think about the most common things, which the legal documents are things that you think about. But some of the legal documents you may not think about, like something like your advance directives, your healthcare proxy, and your living will. If you have a child who's over 18, do you know that if that child ever has a car accident and is incapacitated or becomes ill and ends up in the hospital, you as a parent have no legal right to make any medical decisions for that child because they're over 18 unless you have those documents in place. A lot of parents are shocked to find that out. You know, the other thing that can happen is sometimes it's the silliest thing that you don't even know is important that becomes important. I worked with a gentleman, you know, with a family who literally, the uncle who had never married, never had any children, always went into his house via his garage door opener, has a heart attack. EMS comes in, takes him out of the house, closes the door behind them. The house is now locked. He goes to the hospital and dies, and nobody in the family has a key to the house. Nobody can get into the house. And if they broke in, they would have been arrested for breaking and entering because they couldn't even break in until the will was read. Thank God he didn't have a dog in the house, you know, that needed attention because, but it was simply the key was the key and they didn't know. So sometimes it's the smallest thing that you don't know that you need. And that's some of the things that I go through in my planning process is to identify those pieces that, you know, the things you don't know are the things that hurt you the most.
It sounds like this is about caring. Sounds like
Absolutely.
that guy didn't really care about his family. That's what it sounds like to me. What do you think?
Well, he didn't care and he didn't think. And he, you know, he had no thought that he was going to have a heart attack, certainly. And, you know, he never, you know, it was convenient for him to go in and out of his house. But, you know, who has the key to your house? You know, you got to wonder. You know, so obviously you want it to be somebody that you know, like, and trust that would have a key to your house. But that's just one of the things. I mean, other things that have happened. I mean, I had a client I worked with where his wife died unexpectedly at the age of 35. She handled all of the finances in the family, all the banking, the bill paying. He didn't even have the password to the computer. And he had no idea what bank they used, no idea what bills needed to be paid. He sat in front of me just in tears because besides the profound loss that he was feeling, the chaos of his life being turned upside down, and literally I had to find somebody to help him get into his computer to reconstruct all those passwords so that he could figure out what he needed to do financially, but he had no idea. And that's a real role reversal because lots of times it's the woman who doesn't know those things. In this case, it happened to be the man who had just deferred all that to his wife. So lots of things like that can happen. And it's like, he didn't expect her to pass away at the age of 35. Who does? So planning is not something that you just should think about at a certain age. It's something that you literally have to think about all the time. But once you have plans in place, it's just a matter of keeping them updated. So if you get divorced, you don't want your ex being a beneficiary on any of your insurance policies, do you? Unless that was in the divorce decree. You want to make sure that, if say you were leaving your estate to your children and their spouses, well, if those spouses are no longer in the picture, you want to make sure that gets adjusted, because you certainly wouldn't want them to get part of your estate. So there's lots of little things that you need to keep updated, but once you have everything in place, it just makes it so easy, and you literally can get off the worry-go-round, because so many of us are worried about everything. It keeps us awake at night, it makes you sick, you lose sleep, you're not comfortable because you're worried about all these things that could happen. And I've always said, my father always taught me that there's two types of things that people worry about. You worry about the things you can control and the things you can't. Well, the things you can't control, you're wasting your energy if you're worrying about them. And if the things you can control, get off your butt and do something about it and stop worrying, because it's completely wasted energy.
Give us another example of something that people don't really know that they should have in their plans for dealing with disasters.
Well, some of the simplest things that people don't know is homeowners don't know how to turn the water off if there's a flood in the house. They don't know where the shutoff valves are. They don't know how to turn the water off. You can minimize the damage if you have a broken pipe or a leak someplace, if you know how to turn the water off. So one of the things that my home planning kit actually has in it is labels for your water and gas shutoffs. Now, for myself, I never expected to have to use the gas shutoff, but on St. Patty's Day, I was making corned beef and cabbage. I hadn't been cooking very much, so my stove hadn't been used very much recently. And so I had 3 burners going on my gas cooktop. And I finished cooking, and I go to turn the burners off, and one of the burners wouldn't go off. It's still on and burning gas. And I'm like, and this was the day they shut everything down. This is St. Patty's Day, the day we shut down everything. I'm like, I can't even call somebody to come and help me. So fortunately, I had the gas valve in the basement labeled, and I knew how to turn the gas off to the stove. So I turned off the gas to the stove. I still had my hot water. I still had my dryer. And the repairman was just here on Wednesday to fix my stove finally, 3 months later, mind you. But
wow.
So things like that happen, and it's the simplest things. I mean, I had another situation where I turned the water off to my outside faucet this winter, and when I turned it on, I didn't realize there was a pinhole leak on the line inside the house. And I'm sitting on my computer and I'm working, and all of a sudden I hear this alarm going off, and I'm like, what the heck is that? And I took off my headset. I walk over I had a water leak detector next to the washing machine, and there was just a little tiny bit of water, and it picked up the water and set off the alarm. So I was able to turn off the water before I had a major flood in my basement. So things like that are the simplest little things that people don't know how to fix. I mean, another thing is those water leak detectors can be very helpful. If you have central air conditioning, there's a drip pan in the attic. And I literally had a waterfall in my closet from the drip pan overflowing because the drain got clogged. You put a water leak detector up there, you'll know before you end up having to take all your clothing to the dry cleaner.
So do you have like a list of things, and how many things are on that list in your book?
In the book, there's almost 100 different items that you need to have to put together. And it's things like your passport information, your birth certificates, your divorce decree, marriage licenses, all those documents, all your insurance documents, your closing documents for your house, your, all your legal documents, your banking information. There are so many different, your retirement information if you have a pension, your financial investment information, and if you put everything together in one place, it's so easy to grab it and go if there's an emergency. Just a month ago, there was a dam that broke up in Michigan, and 20,000 people were evacuated in 20 minutes. Now, if you didn't know where your paperwork was and couldn't just grab it and take it with you, I mean, you're not going to have anything, and it's very difficult to reconstruct all that stuff from memory. You're not going to know, quite honestly. And I also tell people to always have 3 sets of documents. You want to have a set at home, a set in the safe deposit box, or on a flash drive, given to somebody, and then you want to have a set in the cloud. My philosophy for that is, if you lose your home, you still have the bank and the cloud. If your community is destroyed, then you still have the cloud. If all 3 are gone, we've got much bigger problems than my little piece of documentation.
Who are some celebrities who have had some things happen to them, and tell us their stories?
Well, some celebrities that have had things happen. Let's see. Well, not necessarily a celebrity, but I was a pharmaceutical rep for many, many years. And one of my physicians, who had this gorgeous house in 5 towns, had just renovated everything, had everything rebuilt, and, just this massive addition done to her house. She's flying home from vacation. And if you know anything about the traffic pattern, the air traffic pattern coming into JFK, it flies over 5 towns. And as she's flying over the 5 towns area, she could see all these fire trucks on the ground in close to where she thought her neighborhood was. And she thought, oh, I wonder what's going on down there. And when she got to her house had burned to the ground. So she had to start all over. Thank God the person that was house sitting for her was able to get her dog and her parrot out of the house before they lost their lives. But literally, I mean, it can happen to anyone. I mean, I remember a story about Drew Barrymore, and she had a fire in her house. This can happen to literally anyone. Can have a disaster happen. And certainly when you think about it, how many celebrities have died unexpectedly without any legal documentation in place? Aretha Franklin had no will. Prince had no will. They're going to be fighting about these things for decades, just as they did for Howard Hughes, who died without a will. I mean, it took decades for them to sort out his estate. So literally, it doesn't matter how rich you are, how poor you are, where you live, you can be struck by an unexpected crisis at any time, at any age. And
you say there's 5 mistakes to avoid in the event of a crisis, and the first one is the Captain America. What do you mean by that?
Well, a lot of people don't plan because literally they say, it's not going to happen to me. But we've just proven that it can happen to anyone, right? Then the next mistake that people make is what I call black cat syndrome, where they think, well, if I make a plan, maybe I'm jinxing myself and bad stuff is going to happen, And the truth is, bad stuff's going to happen whether you have a plan or not. How you get through the bad stuff is all dependent on whether, how you do a plan. Then there's the ones that say, well, I've got it covered. I know what I've got my plans in place. But that's where the little surprises, like who has the keys and, the things that you didn't know about. And, a lot of people think, oh, well, I have a job and I have life insurance on my job and health insurance on my job. But, look what happened. All these people lost their jobs right now. They may be sick and they can't qualify for more life insurance. So things like that happen all the time. I mentioned Howard Hughes. That's another syndrome where you think, well, I'll let my family will figure it out. Okay. That's not an easy thing because it literally took decades for that to get straightened out. And the
Yeah,
final,
like people think, oh, it's going to be so easy for my family to figure it out. You know what, people? You're a freaking jigsaw puzzle, and it's a puzzle of the wheat field. Okay, people are never going to figure your stuff out. You got so many crazy idiosyncrasies. You got so many weird things hidden in weird places. You got so many records and acquisitions, stuff you own, stuff you don't even know you own, hidden all over the place. You think it's on your computer. People don't know how to get into your computer, especially if you have a freaking PC. They don't know how to get into your PC. If you really care about anybody, you better lay it out. I know my wife and I, we have a very specific and extensive will, because you know why? Because we wanted to make sure that there were certain people in our lives who were going to try to get the other person, and we wanted to protect each other from people outside of just us who might be coming after us for money or possessions or stuff like that. So we enumerated everything, and that was really helpful in putting together our plan. You say there's one more mistake to avoid when putting together your disaster plan. You call that the Irishman.
The Irishman, for Scorsese's new movie about Jimmy Hoffa. And literally, they're still looking for Jimmy Hoffa's body. And if you don't tell your family where to find things, it's like sending people on a scavenger hunt without a list. Scavenger hunts are difficult enough when you know what you're looking for, but if you don't know what you're looking for, it can be really traumatic. A perfect example of that is when my in-laws passed away and my husband and I were cleaning out their house. Now they'd both been through the Great Depression, so they were squirrels. We literally had to shake every book, look in every pocket, and I found $250 taped to the inside of the toilet tank in the garage, not in the house, in the garage. Now, it was like so bizarre. You didn't know what you were looking for, but you knew you had to look in every place because you didn't know what you were going to find, whether it was jewelry or money or stock certificates. We found the strangest things in the strangest places.
Yes. Women's purses are also treasure mines to find stuff. Find any good stuff in the ladies' purses?
She didn't have too much there. It was more my father-in-law in his books and things, and photo albums. And it was like you'd open something up. Oh my goodness, look at this. It's like, and you couldn't throw anything away. And they were squirrels. They had more stuff that we filled a 40-yard dumpster, emptying a 2-bedroom, very small home in Florida.
Oh, I believe it. In my apartment building in Midtown Manhattan, we have a maintenance department. And one day we got a notice, if we're going to be cleaning the windows of the whole building. And if you want us to clean your screens, it's $10 per screen for the maintenance man to come in, take it out, and put it back after he cleans it. And I remember seeing one of the maintenance guys going onto a floor to do that stuff. And I go, hey man, a lot of hoarders? He goes, oh, you wouldn't believe how many hoarders. And the young ones too. It's not just the old people, the young people that are hoarders. It would blow your mind. And it's a real problem. I remember one of the women who took Celebrity Launchpad, her name was Janice Wilson Striddick. And she wrote a book. She didn't write the book so much as she produced the book, called, it was about her mother's watercolor paintings of the New Jersey shore. And she told me, she came in and did Celebrity Launchpad, and I really liked her a lot because I met her at the New York City Book Festival at the Javits Center, the New York Book Fair. And she was walking up the aisle towards my booth, and I saw her and I started talking to her, and it turns out she went to the University of Pennsylvania, which is where the Wharton Business School is. I'm like, look, tell me what you do and I'll give it to you straight. She goes, I got this coffee table book about my dead mother's watercolor paintings of the New Jersey shore. Do you think I could promote that on TV? And I'm like, that's a tough one. You know, a coffee table book of dead, not famous painters' watercolor paintings of New Jersey. And she signs up for Celebrity Launchpad because I got a mathematical formula, and I now believe it will work for anybody for anything. She comes and she does her homework, and she watches the training videos, and she shows up for her consultation with me as part of Celebrity Launchpad. And I go, okay, so what did you come up with? Like, what's your ideas? And she goes, well, I saw your thing about, you know, are you married to a vampire? Take the quiz. So I came up with my own thing. Are you an art curator, or are you just a hoarder? Take the quiz. And I'm like, whoa, what is that all about? She goes, well, you know, when I produced this book about my mother's art, I didn't think it was going to take me 10 years, but that's what it did. And along the way, like 7 years in, I started thinking to myself, am I really an art curator, or am I just a hoarder? And it turns out like 1 in 8 people in America is a hoarder. And those people, these hoarders, you know, a lot of my background comes from the men's teams, the men's self-help groups. And we had a guy on our team, and we suspected he was a hoarder, right? He was an old guy. I don't want to say his name. He was an old guy, probably in his 70s, maybe late 70s. And we suspected he had an issue. And I remember one time we started the meeting, and we said, okay, now we're going to blindfold everybody and go to the next location, right? And we just blindfolded him, and we put him in a car, and we took him to his house, and we circled everybody up in front of his front door. And we take off the blindfold, and he looks at his door, and then he starts freaking out. He's like, no way, F you guys. And no way, we're not going in there. I'm like, hey man, we're here for you. We're here. We got 14 guys here. We're going to help you to deal with your hoard. Screw you. I mean, he just lost it. He just lost it because for a lot of these people, it's about keeping secrets. It's about power. It's about shame. It's about fear. It's about loss of control in your life. The psychological issues going on in keeping these types of records and dealing with these kinds of issues can be very, very profound. So I think that the work you do is very important and also very challenging for a lot of people. And, you know, what I really like the most that I heard you say is that you do a done with you service now. I think that's very smart.
Yes.
How can people find out more about the work you do? The book and the work you do and the kit. I know you have the kit that you sell, helps people. You know, you might want to even videotape one of your sessions helping somebody, or what you would do, like make a video of what you would do and sell that as okay, you know, bring up the video and press play, and then I'm going to walk you through it the whole way through. Right. So how can people find out more about Linda Fostek and your great work?
Well, they can go to thecrisisplanner.com, or they can reach me via email at lindafostek@thecrisisplanner.com. Very simple.
Crisisplanner.com. My guest has been the one and only crisis planner herself, Linda Fostek. And if you enjoyed this, I tell you what, you're coming to Dr. Oz, right, Linda?
You bet. I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Why are you going to Dr. Oz? I mean, he's a doctor.
Because a lot of what I deal with is health records as well. And, you know, Dr. Oz, Patch Adams, Jocelyn Elders, they're all in the medical field. I came from the medical field. I was 22 years as a pharmaceutical rep. So for me, meeting these people is really going to be very, very special. And of course, Paula Deen, I absolutely adore. I can't wait for that event. And, you know, and astronauts have inspired us all. So you look at the amazing lineup you have for this event. if you miss it, you really have missed it, because this is going to be so awesome.
Isn't it crazy? I mean, what I have put together, this is going to be, I've marketed this in certain places as the greatest expert marketing event ever created. It really is. I mean, the massive amount of value you get. I have less than 20 gold opportunities left, okay? If you want pictures with all of those people, you need to be a gold, and I have less than 20 of those tickets left, and you need to get one at www.imm20.com. That stands for Instant Marketing Miracle. That's what this is. This is a miracle. A marketing package that's going to have a miraculous effect on your career as an expert, an author, a speaker, a coach, an entrepreneur. Because especially today, when you are competing against AOC +3, you are competing against Black Lives Matter, you're competing against riots, you're competing against arson, you're competing against Donald Trump, you're competing against the coronavirus and the global pandemic. All that stuff is competing for everyone's attention. How are you as an expert going to stand out against all of that? Well, that's what I got all these major celebrities to help everybody. They're going to take pictures with you. I'm going to ask them questions. They're going to answer questions and tell stories. And you're going to have stories like you're going to say, holy cow, Linda, how did you meet Dr. Oz? And you could say, well, we were at a conference together at CNN Center in Atlanta. And I asked him about the crisis, you know, and he said, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to ask these questions for everybody so that everybody's going to have the right questions about these experts that they can use as stories in their marketing. And this whole issue of celebrity storytelling, this is a thing invented by me, celebrity storytelling. It's so powerful. People care about celebrities more than they care about their own children, but not as much as they care about their pets. I know that's true for me. And
me too. But I don't have any children. I just have a pet, so that's okay.
We're going to have a lot of fun because you've been to quite a few of my events. Are they fun?
They are absolutely amazing. I learned so much, not just from being there. You are an incredible teacher. You are so willing to share your knowledge and wisdom with us. And like you say, do what Clint says, because if you do what Clint says, you will be successful. You know, it's as simple as that.
It really is. Just do what I say. Just show up. I'm going to be teaching my reality series. Okay. And Linda, I'm going to send you the book. I want to send you a link for the book, and I'd love your feedback on this book. Okay. Okay. I'm going to be gifting everyone at this event my new book called Your Reality Series: How to Sell to Anyone, Anywhere, Anytime, as the star of your own reality show. And I'm going to be teaching the 5 pillars of my celebrity entrepreneurship framework. I'm going to teach you what do real celebrity entrepreneurs do, like Grant Cardone and Tony Robbins and me and Linda and everybody else at our event is a celebrity entrepreneur, all different levels. And some of the celebrity entrepreneurs that are going to be there for you to meet and learn from and attach to include Dr. Oz, Dr. Drew, the Surgeon General of the United States, celebrity chef Paul Dean, Patch Adams, the guy who inspired the movie starring Robin Williams, NASA astronaut Mike Massimino, and then I have gold medal female MMA world champion Janae Newman, who is a children's book author, and celebrity dentist Catrice Austin, who was recently paid to go on the Dr. Oz show and endorse a tooth whitening product, and many, many more. It's all going to be happening in Atlanta, August 7, 8, 9. If you don't get one of these last 20 gold opportunities, you're loco. I'm in Mexico, man, and that's what they say down here. You loco, man, you loco. And don't be loco, be smart. And go to imm20.com. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of The Greatest Show of All Time. I am honored to be your host, Clint Arthur. And until next week, Sunday night, 9:30 p.m., right here on 77 WABC. I will see you then back here for The Greatest Show of All Time. All right.
All right.